Hey, you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I was going to change the intro, but I'm just going to keep it like that now. Just out of pure laziness, it's just easier for me. So it's Friday. Thanks for the stories, guys. Thank you for sending in the stories. Ladies, where were you this week? I expected something. I got nothing from no one. I know it's New Year. I know you're all coming down. I know it's been a big holiday season, but you're starting to burn up my stories. Thank God I have 20 years of fucking debauchery under my belt. So I have a few stories stockpiled up, so I'm able to. But next week, I want a fucking story from someone. God damn it. Can you do that for me? Can someone send me a goddamn story? Okay, let's just get straight into it. So this is when I was about 24. I was on a trip. It was the biggest trip I'd ever taken to that point. I was going Thailand, Vietnam, South America, and then South Africa on the way back home. South Africa never fucking happened. That's a whole other 14-hour story that I'll eventually get to. So the Thailand part of the trip, I met up with about 20 mates from back home. And that was wild in itself as well. But I don't think it's worthy of a fucked up Friday story. So I spent Christmas and New Year's with the boys. With the fucking boys. And then on like January 3, I went to Vietnam by myself. I just flew to Vietnam. The plan was I was going to start out in Ho Chi Minh City. Then over about 10 or 12 days, work my way up to Hanoi. The top, going from south to north. See the scenery. Do all that sort of shit. So the first stop was Trang, which ended up being the last stop as well. That is as close to Hanoi as I ever got. I had heard good stories about Nha Trang. Everyone who had been there had told me it is fucking wild, and I can vouch for that. That place is one of the funnest places I've ever been to. As soon as I got there, it was just on. I found a hotel room. It was $7 US a night. For a double room, like luxury penthouse with a spa inside, overlooking the beach. It was fucking great. And I was in probably the best form I've ever been in my entire life. I think the rig was looking good. I still had some hair. I was buzzing because this trip was going to be amazing. And I just went out and I was killing it everywhere. Making friends, hooking up with girls. It was just the best. So about 5 days into Nha Trang, I'm just bar hopping all day, all night. I ended up at this nightclub. It ended up just being me pretty much dancing by myself. I didn't give a fuck. That's how much fun I was having. There was more or less no one else in the nightclub, and I was just ordering drinks and just dancing by myself. I was just in the zone. So I walk out of this nightclub, completely hammered, but I'm still in the zone. I'm still loving life. I walk out of this nightclub and it is daylight, pure daylight, like not 4 a.m. It's like 9:30, maybe 10 a.m. And I'm thinking, fuck this, I just want to kick on. I want to keep this buzz going. So I walk out of this place and there's a guy out the front leaning on a motorbike. Not someone that's trying to pick up tourists and take them places, just some guy. And so I just walk up to him, I hop on the back of his motorbike. He starts freaking out. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, baby, I've got money. Let's just go. I showed him the money in my wallet and he hopped on the bike and we just went. I had no fucking idea where I was going. He didn't really speak much English, like it was real broken English, and he was trying to ask me where I want to go and I just kept pointing forward. I just want to go forward, baby. Just keep taking me forward. And he's like, all right, let's keep going. And we just keep riding and riding and riding. And then I'm like, where the fuck are we going? Because there's no town anymore. There's no shops and there's no people anymore. And then I'm like, fuck it, let's just keep riding. And so we're riding. And from what I can remember, we're riding up into these sort of hills. We're riding for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, God knows how long. And there's nothing anymore. I'm like, what the fuck? And then he jumps on his phone. I'm like, oh no. I hope he knows I'm not American. I'm not American. I kept on saying that. I was like, I'm Australian, yeah? I'm Australian. I'm not American. I just want you to be clear about that. And so we finally get up to sort of like the top of this hill area, and there's a bunch of houses around, and we stop in the middle of the road, and he jumps on his phone, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm real fucking nervous now. I wasn't playing it super cool anymore. He's like, well, just wait here, just relax, it's fine. That's what he was saying in broken English. Everything he's saying is in barely decipherable English. He's like, don't worry, just relax. We'll wait here for a second. So I'm like, all right, I need to find another drink. I'm starting to get hungover. If I can find another drink, I'll be like Popeye when he has spinach. I'll be back on board. So we're waiting there for a bit. A couple of scooters turn up. He yells out to them. They park just in front of us, like 3 of them. And they're talking back and forth in Vietnamese. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. And then another 3 turn up and park next to these guys. And then another 3. And then another bunch. And the next thing I know, I'm completely surrounded by Vietnamese dudes on scooters. And I'm in the middle of this circle with this guy. And I'm like, I am in some fucking trouble here. And so this guy's talking to these guys on the scooters. And then some yelling starts happening. Back and forth yelling. Yelling between all the guys. Between my guy. And then there's silence. And he turns to me and he's like, how much money do you have? I'm like, I haven't got that much money, man. But I had showed him my wallet earlier. So I had $100 note and I had a bunch of dong, Vietnamese dong, which came up to about the equivalent of about $30. And then he turns back to the circle, says something to them. They all start yelling again. I'm like, I'm fucked here. I was thinking about just giving them the money. So they're yelling and then again, stop, just complete silence. And he turns to me and he's like, do you want to buy something? I'm like, what? He's like, heroin. And I'm like, oh, how much? And he turns back to the circle, says something, yelling. Everyone's yelling. Then, boom, complete silence. Turns back to me. He's like, $100. I'm like, I can't give you the $100. I can give you the dong. And I pull my wallet out and show him the dong. Then he turns back to the circle, yelling. Then one of the guys from the circle comes over and hands him something. He shows me, and it's a blue drinking straw, twisted off at each end of what they said is heroin. At that point, who fucking knows what was in it? And he's like, give me the 100 and you can have this. And I'm like, I'm not giving you the 100. And I took the dong out and I gave him the dong. He turns back to the circle. There's yelling. And then silence again. And he turns back to me and he's like, okay, and hands me the straw. They all disperse immediately and we start riding back down the hill. He takes me back to the place he dropped me, which wasn't far from where I was staying. So I walked back to my hotel fast because I'm paranoid as fuck now. I'm coming down off the booze and I have a straw full of what I think is heroin in my pocket that I just bought off a stranger, and I don't know if he's going to tell the cops and get a payoff for dobbing in a fucking dumbass Westerner. So I'm hauling ass back to my hotel room, get into the hotel room, calm down a little bit. Then I pull the straw out and I'm like, I wonder if it is heroin. So I empty it out onto the TV stand, and I don't know if you've ever seen a straw full of heroin, how much that is. I don't even know how much it is, but it made quite the fucking pile. And I'm like, that is a lot of fucking heroin to be sitting next to the TV. If anyone comes in here, they're going to see that pile. I'm like, I might as well try it. I'll just have a little try, see if it's real, and then I'll start making decisions after that. So I tried it, I did a line, and then I passed directly out. I was fucked anyway. Woke up that afternoon, hung over as a motherfucker. And I'm just lying there, and you know how you replay the night slowly over in your head when you wake up, and you just slowly build the night back up. And then I'm like, oh fuck, the heroin. And I look up and that massive pile is still sitting there next to the TV. I'm like, I need to get rid of this. I need to flush this down the toilet. So I get up, I go to the pile, and I'm like, that's a lot of heroin just to flush down the toilet. Like, I'm no heroin connoisseur, but if there was a connoisseur there, that's like sacrilegious to do that, isn't it? And I was like, if I have some now, that pile's going to be a little bit smaller. And if someone busts through the door, it's only a small pile then, isn't it? Like, I'm not going to get in that much trouble. So I was like, alright, I'll just have a little bit. So I racked up a few lines. I did 3 pretty big ones to begin with, just to get that pile down. And then I was in heaven. For the rest of the day, this is what I did for the rest of the day. I sat on my bed, I didn't move a muscle, and I watched Vietnamese TV in Vietnamese, and it was one of the most beautiful days I've ever had. Whenever I felt it wearing off a little bit, I'd just have another couple of lines, and I did that for about 8 hours, just watching Vietnamese TV in Vietnamese and doing lines of heroin. Once I finished all of it, it was like 2 a.m. or something like that. And this overwhelming sense of like I'd just wasted a whole fucking day. I was having the best time of my life. It was so fucking fun. And I just spent a whole day by myself watching Vietnamese TV. I'm like, that's not how to live a life. And I was honestly like, fuck heroin. That just stole a day of my life. And I was pissed off. So I went to sleep that night. I woke up in the morning. I had no craving for heroin at all. I got a beer. I started drinking. And I just continued my Trang heaven for another 4 days. And then caught the bus directly back to Ho Chi Minh City. Never getting within 1,000 miles of Hanoi. So that's it. That's Fucked Up Fridays for this week. Can you please send me in a story next week? Someone send me in a story sometime this week, please. Okay, that's it. Have a good weekend. Add me on social media. I'm Boyle Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you enjoy the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, do all that shit. Tell your friends. See you fucking later.